And this is what I call predictable change. Even in their schedules, there should always be, just like I will create a problem every time they're there, that we have to problem solve. So we get practice in problem solving, but also in dealing with change. There's always something that I'm going to change a little bit. And they still have the option. Okay, if you want to go back to the way it was, well, okay, then they're just telling me they're not ready for the change. But I will predictably, so they get so used to the fact that every single time she's going to try to slip something new into me, that they're not afraid of it anymore.
Hi, I'm Staci Neustadt. I am a speech language pathologist and the CEO at Making Sense of Autism, and I'm a student of Susan.
And I'm Susan Golubock. I am a now retired occupational therapist who has worked many, many years after I discovered even my own autism with other autistic individuals. I founded Making Sense of Autism because of my passion to not only understand my brain and how it worked differently, but to try to explain what I've learned to other people so that they're more understanding and therefore more accepting and more accommodating to autistic individuals.
So, our goal is to help you provide the right support without trying to fix autism, but by understanding it. So, whether you're a parent, teacher, therapist, or just someone who wants to learn, you're in the right place. Be sure to subscribe and join us every week. We talk about a new topic. Sometimes in our efforts as therapists, teachers, even parents, we want to help our autistic learners, but we actually create rigid and inflexible patterns. We give them strict routines, rules, and prompts, and before long, they can't function without them. So today with Sue, I want to unpack this, how we may be contributing to the rigidity, and more importantly, what can we do differently? So Sue, share with us how when we create these strict environments, how are we creating rigid learners?
Well, again, because autistics don't pick up the soft skills of why they're even learning what they're learning, they tend to memorize, as we all did in school when taking subjects that meant nothing to us, and we memorized to pass the test and then promptly forgot. And unfortunately, this is what our autistic are doing, the same thing, in that they will learn to perform as you present it. Now, if you present using the same materials, the same words, over and over for the repetition, yeah, they're going to memorize it. But then if you try to change things, they're going to, well, no, this is wrong. You taught me this is the right way. And so now that's wrong. And they're going to get upset with people that don't do it exactly the way they learned it, because they were under the impression that this was the right way to do it, because especially when they got rewards for doing it that way. So can you blame them for becoming very rigid learners and being inflexible in their ability to think, because they're not taught to think, they're taught to perform. So therefore, what we need to be aware of is being flexible teachers, i.e., you want similar every time, but you don't want exactly the same way, exactly the same words. Now, you're going to confuse them if you keep changing a lot of things, but there should be at least one element that, I don't use the same materials, but we do the same activities using the same words, but different materials. And then the next time, well, we do similar that are the same materials, but we use a different word, or we throw in something to show them that it's still okay, even if it's done a little differently. And this is where, if you invite them and this is a strategy I've always used with my kids, is when I'm presenting something brand new, I will present them with the materials first and ask them, what would you like to try with these? And I want to see what they already know, how they relate to those materials, what they would do with them on their own based on what they already know and can do. Because then I can build on those strengths. That's the starting point rather than just throwing them everything is totally new and they're clueless and they just are going to follow my lead and memorize. I don't want that.
Yeah.
So therefore, I'm going to start with letting them explore the materials and what they think they can do with them. And then I will show them, can I show you what I know how to do with them? And then I will show them something and say, would you like to try that? And if not, okay. Well, then show me something different that you could do and that you could teach me to do. In other words, I'm encouraging them to be flexible. Well, you've already done that. Can you show me something different? Well, what about if we did this? Would that be okay? Do you see how I'm encouraging, but I'm also giving them permission to say, no, I'm not ready to handle that. No, this is how I know how to do it. And no, I'm not ready for anything new right now. I'm getting that kind of feedback from them. So I'm not going to overwhelm them, but I at least know where they're coming from so that I can gradually build on. And this is what I call predictable change. Mm-hmm. Even in their schedules, there should always be, just like I will create a problem every time they're there, that we have to problem solve. So we get practice in problem solving, but also in dealing with change. There's always something that I'm going to change a little bit. And they still have the option, okay, if you want to go back to the way it was, well, okay, then they're just telling me they're not ready for the change. But I will predictably, so they get so used to the fact that every single time she's going to try to slip something new into me, that they're not afraid of it anymore. They can anticipate I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Now it becomes predictable. It's no longer something they have to rebel against because I'm not going to insist on it. But I'm going to keep presenting things just a little bit different until it gets to be, oh, yeah, she's always going to throw these things. And now what are we going to do today that's wrong? Kind of thing. And they can anticipate and say, well, sometimes I like to do it this way and sometimes I like to do it that way. Sometimes you like to do it different than I do. And that's okay. Do you see how I'm allowing for that? It's okay to be different. It's okay to choose the way you do it, even though I choose to do it a different way. It's still okay. Instead of being such rigid teachers, I'm teaching them those soft skills.
Yeah. And so you mentioned a lot of strategies. So part of the reason, yes, in school, there is definitely memorization. There's no doubt about that. But it sounds like if we also teach that critical thinking of, we're learning about history, we're learning about, Abraham Lincoln, like getting them to think about, how are you similar? How are you different? So getting them to critically think about something of whatever concept they're learning. You mentioned schedules, and you're right. Sometimes that's where we see that rigidity. Well, again, think about it. If the schedule is always the same and you never throw in a little change, well, then we're to blame for that rigidity because we always kept it the same. So I love that little idea of switching it up a little, because inevitably, even in schools, like, we have a change today, there's an assembly. We have a change today, there's a fire drill. We have a change today, the teacher isn't here, so you have a substitute or you have a different class. So, using that, like you said, it became predictable. So using that same vocabulary every time there is a change creates that predictable change. But I agree, that is so important to implement more frequently than not. If you only do this 4 times a year, well, yeah, then those changes are going to be really, really disruptive. So getting them to think about it instead of always the same thing, adding little changes in the visual schedule. And the visual is the key point because auditory, they might miss it. And then throwing in that problem solving of, oh man, what do we do with this change if it's not feeling, we're not feeling it that day. Those are really, really good suggestions.
And also, the best thing to do is build in flexibility in the schedule. Never have everything scheduled one right after the other. There have to be break times. It can be a 5-minute, 10-minute, 15-minute period where it's just blank. Well, oh, hey, we finished that and we've got a choice. What would you like to do for 10, 15 minutes? But also when something happens and you need to, like you say, swap out something important, we have to do this at this time. I know it's a change. So what are we going to do with what we were going to do at that time? Let's find a flexible time, an open time that we could put it there. And they know that there's flexible times. It's not like you have to discard it. They can't ever do it. There's built-in flexible times to be able to juggle things around, which is what we do automatically. We juggle our schedules constantly to accommodate change. And so that's an important soft skill that they need to learn too.
Absolutely. And, one of the best things that you taught me that we all just do without even thinking about it is, like you said, we make those changes, we problem solve, but we don't talk about it with our students or even our children. We just create the solution, but then they have no idea, especially autistic children don't know how we came to that solution. So talking through that plan, talking through that solution to that problem is so key. So they see how you came up with it. And one, it will absolutely calm any anxiety that comes up because you made the change, because now they know how you did it. And then two, it's teaching them how to find those solutions on their own because you just taught them how you did it. Especially of like moving. Oh, look, I see we have free time later, so I'm going to move it there. So you're talking them through how you came up with that solution. Super, super important. So we definitely are partially to blame for the prompt reliance, for the rigidity, for the inflexibility, and we didn't even realize we were doing it. But now that one saying, now that we know better, we can do better. So if your schedule you find is just the same thing every day, or if you're finding that you aren't having your students kind of think about things, putting things out, having them be creative, get curious, all of these things are going to create that soft skill of being flexible when we add flexibility into the schedule. I want to say social stories. I know I've created social stories in the past about being flexible. You can't teach it that way. It is not going to teach flexibility. You have to incorporate it and then talk about how you came up with the solution to be flexible. Great information, and hopefully everyone incorporates that because you will create flexible thinkers without having to purchase extra curriculum, without having to do anything different. This is a very simple skill you can implement every day. Awesome. Well, thank you. Great information, Sue.
Thanks for asking, Staci.